Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The day began like any other in Genoa City, but for Victoria Newman, it would turn into one of the most shocking days of her life, a day that would forever change her understanding of her family and the secrets that had long lurked in the shadows, carefully hidden by those she trusted most. It all started when Audra Charles, whose reputation for unpredictability and bold revelations was already well known among the Newmans, appeared at Newman Enterprises under the guise of a casual visit, her demeanor calm but her eyes betraying the storm brewing behind them, a storm that would soon sweep through the Newman family like a tornado, leaving no one untouched. Victoria, busy in her office preparing for an important board meeting, barely noticed the subtle tension that filled the room when Audra arrived, carrying herself with a poise that commanded attention. And yet there was something different in her aura today, something that hinted at revelations far beyond the ordinary. Without the usual preamble of small talk or pleasantries, Audra approached Victoria and, in a voice steady but laced with an undeniable intensity, announced that she had something of paramount importance to disclose, something that concerned not only Victoria herself but the young woman Victoria had always believed to be her daughter, Claire Newman. At first, Victoria assumed Audra's message was another of the countless drama-laden stories that had woven themselves into the fabric of the Newman household over the years. An unexpected lawsuit, a corporate maneuver, or some petty feud designed to unsettle the family. But as Audra's words began to take shape, the air seemed to thicken with a weight that made Victoria's heart race and her mind spin, as if the room itself were conspiring to trap her in a reality she wasn't prepared to face. "Victoria," Audra began, her eyes locking onto Victoria's with a piercing clarity. "There is something you need to know about Claire, about who she really is. The truth has been buried for years, hidden in plain sight, and the time has finally come for you to understand her origins. Claire is my biological daughter." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow, reverberating through her entire body, leaving her frozen in disbelief, her mind struggling to reconcile the truth Audra had just spoken with the life she had meticulously constructed, believing that she had known everything there was to know about her daughter, every detail of her upbringing, every secret, every hidden fear. Her initial reaction was a mixture of denial and incredulity. She stumbled backward, clutching the edge of her desk as if it could anchor her to reality while her brain raced through countless memories of Claire's childhood, the moments she had shared with her, the milestones she had celebrated, all filtered through the lens of what she now realized might have been a carefully maintained illusion. Audra, sensing Victoria's shock but unwavering in her resolve, continued with a composed yet urgent intensity, recounting the events that had led to Claire being raised as a Newman, explaining the circumstances that had necessitated the concealment of the truth, the deals and decisions made in secrecy by people Victoria had trusted implicitly, decisions that had placed the well-being of a child above transparency, yet had resulted in a lifetime of deception for the very people who had loved her most. Each detail Audra revealed seemed to chip away at the foundation of Victoria's understanding, forcing her to question every interaction she had ever had with Claire, every choice she had made on her daughter's behalf, and every instance when Claire's behavior, her inexplicable fears, her sudden bursts of emotion, might have been clues pointing to a reality far more complex than Victoria had ever imagined. As Audra spoke, Victoria's mind alternated between anger, confusion, and a deep, gnawing sadness, an emotional whirlwind that left her reeling as she struggled to process not only the revelation itself but the profound implications it had for her family, her identity as a mother, and the bonds she had believed unbreakable. Audra, sensing the tumult within Victoria, softened her tone slightly, emphasizing that her intent was not to destroy the Newman family or to take Claire away but to finally allow the truth to surface, to give both Victoria and Claire the opportunity to understand the circumstances that had brought them to this moment, to acknowledge the sacrifices and the mistakes, the hidden fears and the well-intentioned lies that had shaped Claire's upbringing. Victoria, though still reeling, began to ask the questions that had been gnawing at her since the moment Audra had spoken, questions about the early years of Claire's life, the circumstances surrounding her adoption, the reasons why Audra had remained distant yet observant, and why the timing of this revelation had been so carefully orchestrated, questions that demanded answers not just for the sake of curiosity but for the sake of understanding the full scope of Claire's identity, the essence of who she truly was beyond the life Victoria had known her to lead. Audra answered each question with candor and a level of detail that left Victoria both awestruck and unsettled, describing the delicate balance she had had to maintain to protect Claire from those who might exploit the truth, to shield her from heartbreak while ensuring that she could grow up safely and with love, even if that love had come from another mother figure, another family, a family that had embraced her as one of their own without knowing the full extent of her origins. Victoria's emotions oscillated wildly between grief and empathy, between anger at having been kept in the dark and admiration for the strength Audra had shown in safeguarding her daughter's future, a complexity of feeling that left her overwhelmed yet unwilling to retreat, unwilling to allow the moment to pass without grappling fully with the consequences of what she had just learned. In the midst of this emotional maelstrom, Victoria's thoughts inevitably turned to Claire, to the daughter she had raised with unwavering dedication and love, and to the revelation that Claire's entire understanding of herself and her family might now be upended, that the young woman who had confided in her, laughed with her, cried with her, and leaned on her in times of need had a hidden history, a maternal truth that had been obscured, and a birth mother whose presence and intentions had only now been revealed in a way that demanded acknowledgement, reflection, and ultimately, reconciliation. Victoria's mind raced as she envisioned the conversation she would need to have with Claire, a conversation that would require delicacy, honesty, and an ability to convey both love and truth without shattering the fragile equilibrium of a daughter's trust, a task made infinitely more complicated by the swirling emotions she herself was experiencing, by the confrontation with her own limitations and the realization that motherhood was far more intricate and layered than she had ever allowed herself to imagine. Meanwhile, Audra, aware of the monumental weight of her revelation, did not press further, understanding that the impact of her words would take time to settle, that Victoria would need to process the news at her own pace, and that Claire herself would eventually need to be brought into the conversation when the moment was right, when the raw edges of shock had softened enough to allow for meaningful dialogue, for the kind of connection that could bridge years of absence and misunderstanding. Despite the emotional turbulence, a part of Victoria could not help but admire the courage it had taken for Audra to step forward, to confront the past and assert her role in Claire's life not as an antagonist or an intruder but as a mother seeking acknowledgement, connection, and the possibility of building a relationship that honored both her own bond with Claire and the life that Claire had known and cherished under the Newman name. The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with unsaid words, with the history of choices and sacrifices that had led to this pivotal moment, a moment that would redefine relationships, recalibrate perceptions, and challenge every character involved to reconsider what family truly meant, to weigh the significance of biological connection against the bonds forged through years of love, care, and shared experiences, and to confront the truth that identity is never a simple matter of genetics alone but a tapestry woven from countless acts of devotion, courage, and resilience. Victoria's mind continued to whirl with hypotheticals, with questions about how Claire would respond, whether she would feel betrayal or relief, confusion or acceptance, how she would integrate this revelation into her understanding of herself and her place within the Newman family, and how Victoria herself could navigate the delicate balance of maintaining her maternal relationship while honoring Claire's biological connection, a balance that would require patience, empathy, and a depth of emotional intelligence that Victoria was determined to summon even as the initial shock threatened to overwhelm her entirely. As the conversation drew to a tentative close, with Audra offering support and the promise of guidance for the difficult conversations yet to come, Victoria sat in stunned silence, absorbing the enormity of what she had just learned, the seismic shift in her perception of Claire's identity, and the profound implications for the Newman family, recognizing that life as she knew it had irrevocably changed, and that the path forward would demand courage, honesty, and above all, an unwavering commitment to love, understanding, and the hope that despite the years of secrecy, the bonds that truly mattered could endure, could evolve, and could ultimately be strengthened by the truth now laid bare, a truth that, while painful and disorienting, offered the possibility of connection, reconciliation, and a new chapter in the complex and ever-unfolding saga of family, identity, and the enduring power of love in all its forms, a chapter that Victoria was now determined to face with grace, resilience, and the unwavering belief that even the deepest secrets, once revealed, could serve as a catalyst for growth, healing, and a more profound understanding of what it truly meant to be a mother, a daughter, and a family in a world where love, loyalty, and truth are never as simple as they seem. Victoria sat in stunned silence, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, trying to process the enormity of Audra's revelation while the walls of her office seemed to close in around her, each tick of the clock echoing the weight of the truth that had just been dropped into her life, a truth that had the power to upend everything she had believed about her family, her daughter, and herself. Her hands trembled slightly as she ran them over the edge of her desk, the polished wood a cold reminder of the stability she had always prided herself on maintaining, now rendered fragile and uncertain. Audra, observing Victoria with a keen sense of both empathy and resolve, remained patient, understanding that the shock could not be rushed, that Victoria needed time to digest each layer of the story, each hidden fragment of Claire's past that had been carefully concealed for years, each moment of sacrifice and courage that had brought them to this precarious yet pivotal moment. And yet, the silence between them was thick, pregnant with tension, as Victoria's mind raced through scenarios she had never imagined, questioning not only the logistics of Claire's upbringing but the emotional consequences of this revelation on her daughter's psyche, on the foundation of trust they had built together, and on the dynamics of the Newman family as a whole. Her thoughts darted to the early years of Claire's life, to the bedtime stories, the school projects, the mother-daughter conversations that had seemed so ordinary at the time but now, under this new light, carried hidden undertones, invisible threads of a narrative that had been woven in secrecy, threads that Victoria had unknowingly participated in, threads that both connected and distanced her from the truth of Claire's origins. Victoria felt a surge of anger rise within her, anger at the situation, at the secrecy, at the people who had deemed it necessary to withhold the truth, anger at herself for not recognizing the signs sooner, for not questioning the subtle inconsistencies, the moments that might have hinted at a deeper story. And yet this anger was tempered by a profound sadness, a grief for the years lost, the moments that could never be reclaimed, the unspoken words and the unshared experiences that could have enriched Claire's understanding of her own identity and her relationship with both women who had loved her. Audra's presence, calm yet assertive, served as both a catalyst and an anchor, forcing Victoria to confront the reality of the situation without allowing her to spiral completely into despair, guiding her toward a framework in which the revelation could be processed constructively, where the focus could shift from blame to understanding, from shock to dialogue, and from uncertainty to a tentative plan for navigating the next steps with Claire at the center. Victoria's eyes, previously narrowed in disbelief, began to soften, the initial rush of emotion giving way to a more measured response, a determination to protect Claire from additional upheaval while simultaneously acknowledging the truth of her biological origins, a balance that seemed almost impossible to achieve but that Victoria knew she had to strive for the sake of her daughter's emotional stability and the integrity of their relationship. The conversation with Audra inevitably shifted toward practical matters, toward how to approach Claire with this revelation, how to frame the story in a way that would not overwhelm her, how to provide context, reassurance, and love, all while respecting the autonomy of the young woman at the center of this emotional maelstrom. Audra suggested a careful, step-by-step approach, emphasizing honesty but also sensitivity, a method that acknowledged Claire's right to know while honoring the years she had spent as a Newman, the life she had known, and the relationships she had formed, a delicate balancing act that would require patience, empathy, and unwavering commitment from both women now positioned as mothers in Claire's life. Victoria, though still grappling with her own feelings of betrayal, relief, and curiosity, began to formulate a plan in her mind, envisioning the conversation she would have with Claire, the words she would use, the reassurances she would provide, and the open space she would create for Claire to express her own emotions, her own questions, and her own needs as she navigated the profound complexity of learning that her biological mother was not who she had always believed her to be. In her mind, Victoria pictured the initial moments of confrontation, the possible reactions Claire might have, shock, confusion, anger, sadness, even relief, and the ways in which she could support her daughter through each stage, offering love and stability as the anchor points in a sea of uncertainty, as the guiding presence that would help Claire integrate this new understanding into her sense of self without destabilizing the bonds that had already been formed within the Newman family. The sheer scope of what needed to be done, the emotional labor required, was staggering, yet Victoria felt a strange surge of determination, a resolve born from both maternal instinct and a deep-seated understanding that family is defined not solely by biology but by the acts of love, sacrifice, and support that endure even in the face of life-altering revelations. As the hours passed, the conversation between Victoria and Audra deepened, moving from practical considerations to philosophical reflections on motherhood, identity, and the meaning of family, the dialogue rich with insight, emotion, and the unspoken acknowledgement that what they were undertaking was unprecedented, that the potential for growth, connection, and healing was immense, but so too was the risk of misunderstanding, conflict, and emotional turmoil. Victoria considered the role she had played in Claire's life, the countless decisions, both large and small, that had shaped the young woman into who she was, and the ways in which her love, guidance, and presence had provided a foundation that, while complicated by the revelation of biological parentage, could still serve as a cornerstone of stability and trust, a testament to the enduring power of a mother's love, regardless of the circumstances of birth. Simultaneously, she acknowledged Audra's role, the sacrifices she had made, the distance she had maintained to protect her daughter, and the courage it had taken to step forward now, to claim her place in Claire's story, to offer the possibility of a relationship grounded in honesty, respect, and genuine affection. A relationship that could coexist with Victoria's own maternal bond if navigated with care, empathy, and commitment. As Victoria's mind whirled with the emotional, logistical, and relational complexities of the situation, a sense of clarity began to emerge, a recognition that while the revelation had disrupted her understanding of the past, it also offered an opportunity to strengthen the present and shape the future, to redefine the parameters of family, to embrace the nuanced reality that love, truth, and connection are never simple, and that the act of facing difficult truths with courage and compassion can ultimately lead to deeper, more authentic relationships. The conversation turned to the delicate question of timing, of when and how Claire should be informed, with both women agreeing that rushing the revelation could be as harmful as concealing it, that the emotional readiness of the daughter was paramount, and that a carefully orchestrated introduction to the truth, supported by both her biological and legal mothers, could provide a sense of continuity, safety, and affirmation even in the midst of disruption. Victoria began to map out possible scenarios, imagining Claire's potential reactions, the questions she would ask, the emotions she would experience, and the ways in which they could provide reassurance and guidance without imposing their own narratives or expectations, recognizing that Claire's journey toward understanding and acceptance would be uniquely her own, a process that required patience, openness, and unwavering respect for her autonomy. As the plan took shape, Victoria felt a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to navigate the coming weeks with deliberate care, balancing the responsibilities of her role as a mother with the recognition of Audra's rightful place in Claire's life, determined to foster a collaborative approach that prioritized Claire's well-being, emotional stability, and capacity to integrate the truth into her identity without compromising the love and security she had always known. Throughout the discussion, the weight of the revelation remained palpable, yet the dialogue itself became a form of catharsis, a means of processing the shock, articulating fears, expressing hopes, and beginning to construct a framework for moving forward, a framework grounded in honesty, empathy, and the shared desire to support Claire in navigating a truth that was both life-changing and potentially transformative. Victoria, reflecting on the intricate tapestry of relationships, choices, and sacrifices that had led to this moment, recognized that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, that misunderstandings, emotional upheaval, and moments of tension were inevitable, yet also understood that the opportunity for growth, reconciliation, and deepened familial bonds was equally real, a chance to transcend past secrecy and create a more authentic, resilient, and loving family dynamic. The realization dawned that while the path forward would require courage, communication, and careful navigation, the ultimate outcome could be profoundly enriching, allowing Claire to embrace both aspects of her maternal lineage, to understand the complexity of her identity, and to experience the love of two women committed to her well-being, a duality that, while unconventional, could provide a richer, more nuanced sense of belonging, identity, and connection. In this moment, Victoria felt a mixture of humility, determination, and hope, a recognition of the limitations of her control and the necessity of collaboration, a commitment to honor both her own role and Audra's in Claire's life, and a readiness to engage with the challenges, uncertainties, and profound possibilities that lay ahead, understanding that the revelation of biological parentage, while seismic in its impact, need not diminish the love, care, and trust that had been nurtured over the years, but rather could serve as a catalyst for growth, understanding, and a deeper, more inclusive definition of family. As the conversation drew to a close, Victoria and Audra shared a moment of mutual acknowledgement, a silent agreement that the journey ahead would be complex, demanding, and emotionally charged, yet also rich with potential for healing, connection, and the creation of a more complete understanding of Claire's identity, her history, and the enduring power of maternal love, a love that transcends circumstance, biology, and the passage of time, affirming that family, in its truest sense, is defined not solely by birth but by the consistent, unwavering commitment to care, nurture, and support those we love, no matter how difficult the truth or how challenging the path to understanding may be, a truth that Victoria, Audra, and eventually Claire herself would come to embody as they navigated the intricate, emotional, and ultimately transformative journey set in motion by the revelation that had upended their world and redefined the very meaning of motherhood, identity, and family in ways that would resonate far beyond this moment, shaping relationships, perspectives, and the very fabric of their lives for years to come. As Victoria sat absorbing the enormity of Audra's revelation, her thoughts inevitably shifted to Claire herself, the young woman who had grown up under the Newman name, who had trusted her implicitly, and who now, whether she knew it or not, was standing at the precipice of a truth that could shatter her sense of self, a truth that demanded careful handling, delicate timing, and an extraordinary level of empathy from both women claiming a stake in her life. Victoria imagined Claire walking into her office, radiant and confident as always, unaware of the seismic shift that had occurred just beyond her perception, unaware that the very foundation of her understanding of family and identity was about to be challenged, and Victoria's heart tightened at the thought of the confusion, fear, and emotional turmoil that might ripple through her daughter's mind once the revelation was made known. She thought about all the small moments, the late-night conversations, the words of encouragement, the celebrations, the consolations, the advice given and received, and the unspoken bond of love and trust that had grown over the years between mother and daughter, a bond that now faced the ultimate test of resilience as it contended with the shock of biological truth. Audra, meanwhile, remained a steady presence, aware of the emotional chaos she had unleashed but resolute in her mission to bring the truth to light. Determined not to claim Claire as her own in a possessive way but to introduce herself as a part of her history, a missing piece of her identity, someone whose love and existence had always mattered even from a distance, and whose absence had been dictated not by neglect but by a complex web of circumstances that required careful navigation to honor the well-being of the daughter they both cherished.